This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
The Mordecai Medrash, we'll start with this. There's a Medrash in Parshas Vayakel, where the Medrash on the Pasuk Vayakel Moshe writes down as that from the beginning of the Torah until the end, this is the only time that the Pasuk says Vayakel at the beginning of the Pasuk. Zog the Medrash, Omar HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Asei lecha kehilos gedolos, make for yourselves big kehilos, v'doirish lifneim berabim Hilchos Shabbos. So steht in Medrash. Dafka make kehilos gedolos and darshan Hilchos Shabbos. The Zera Shimshon on this Medrash explains Pshat, how he understands the Medrash. There's many people that don't do malacha on Shabbos. There's many people that don't perform prohibited activities on Shabbos. They don't do certain things. But that doesn't mean that they're doing it kashet tziva Hashem because the Rabban Shalom told them to, als Hilchos Shabbos, Kedusha V'Tara, Shmira Shabbos. They're doing it because Darkama Batloni Ika Bashuk, Lashnu Chazal Stam. They're lying in bed all day, they're not doing anything. So maybe they're also keeping Shabbos. Zuk the Zera Shimshon on this Medrash, when you gather the Olam together and you learn Hilchos Shabbos, then you're showing Limafreya and Mekana Lahaba that everything that you do on Shabbos means it's being done because of Shabbos. It's being done because of the Rabbeinu Shalom, because of the Issa Melacha that's involved. I thought that was a great Akdama to what we're doing over here, Chazdei Hashem, learning Hilchos Shabbos. We're starting now Emes Melachas. Last time we did Refuah, which is a D'Rabbanan. Now we're starting the Emes Tika Melachas. Downstairs, even in Yeshiva this year, also we're doing Masechtas Shabbos. We're learning also Melachas. Kefi the Psak of Moshe Hillel Hershlita, who told me that I should learn with the boys Hilchos Shabbos. Aliba de Hilchos, the Talmud, Mevid de Maisa, the Gemara Kedushin Daf Mem. It's important to see the Lamaisa that comes out of it. But it goes even further than that. There's a Mordechai Samsoifa. The Samsoifa Shmois Tazai, look it up, it's Moedik. I'm not going to go through the whole shtickle, but just to give you, I'm going to give a lot of my rekomis today. The Samsoifa tells us that we know that Erev Shabbos, Klal Yisrael received a double portion of mon in order to be able to eat on Erev Shabbos and on Shabbos Kodesh also. Zut the Samsoifa that the mon on other days was produced by the Rabbeinu Shalom's learning Torah, as I state. But the double portion that Klal Yisrael received on Erev Shabbos, that was produced specifically from the Rabbeinu Shalom's learning of Hilchos Shabbos. Memele it got double. The learning of Hilchos Shabbos is so powerful, that it brings with it tremendous shefa, tremendous bracha. When a person just sits and learns Hilchos Shabbos, the Samsoifa says that's the reason that they got double portion of mon in Erev Shabbos, because the shefa and the bracha that it brings just of learning Hilchos Shabbos is incredible. Sakhav Rebbe, famously in Niglei Tal, tells us that we're all familiar with Chazal, that tells us that learning, that keeping Shabbos is shokol keneged kol mitzvahs. When a person keeps Hilchos Shabbos, person keeps all the halachos of Shabbos, it's key to keeping all Tariag mitzvahs. Zog the Niglei Tal, the same is true with learning Hilchos Shabbos. That when you learn Hilchos Shabbos, it's keneged learning all other halakim of the Torah together. So Rabbi said we're doing something over here very, very choshev, very, very important. So much so that the Chazon Ish, when he writes in Perek Gimel, in Emunah B'tachon of the Chazon Ish said it's very, very important for a person to learn. When he learns halacha, he goes to a whole perek of learning halacha. It's amazing. Emunah B'tachon of Chazon Ish Perek Gimel. So he talks about don't only learn the halacha l'maisa, don't only learn the maskana, what the Mishnah Berurah, Shulchan Aruch Harav, whatever it is. Don't just learn that. It's important to learn everything from the source. It's important to learn everything from its makar, because so the Chazon Ish, when a person delves into a sugya from the beginning, from the Gemara, like we're doing over here, Chazdei Hashem, from the Gemara with the Rishonim and the Achronim, Chazon Ish says a person develops a certain connection to that which he's learning, which is amazing. Because we're learning Hilchos Shabbos. What better thing is there to have a connection to Heilige Shabbos Kodesh? When you learn the halachos of Shabbos, you get a connection to it. And I can tell you from my own experience as well, I've been learning Shabbos for quite a few years, teaching Shabbos for quite a few years, and when my Sefer came out on Hilchos Shabbos, Shabbos in the Kitchen, a couple of years ago, I made a note. It took me 11 years. It was 11 years of work from the beginning. I had a kollel, and I used to learn it together with the olam. We had horrors from the kollel inside the Sefer as well, and eventually got into a Sefer. After 11 years, whether it's writing a Sefer or not, but just learning Hilchos Shabbos, I could tell you, you develop an amazing connection to Shabbos. And Chazon Ish writes it. The person has a very special experience that he feels when he goes to the depths of something and he learns it from the beginning all the way down. And you have a deeper appreciation not only of the halachas, which are important, but also of the whatever you're learning, the sugya, meaning Shabbos Kodesh as well. It's interesting, by the way, just agav, the Chazon Ish brings an example when he's talking about halacha and how important it is for a person to learn halacha and whatever it is. So he writes, I'll give you an example of the Chazon Ish. What's the example? A person can shake out his beged from dust and he can be over in a Doraisa. And he doesn't even realize it. But when he chops firewood all Shabbos, could be it's only a D'Rabbanan, and the person thinks forget. It's interesting that Chazon Ish brings, that's the example. I thought that was mamash hashgacha protest to say that over here and to see that in the beginning. But Akaponim, that's what we're doing, Chazdei Hashem. And the emes is, I was preparing a share on Malabin, and Be'ez Hashem will give it, Lineda. But then I realized, I think we have to go a step earlier. We're starting learning Melachos of Shabbos. I don't know everyone's Bikiyas in Hilchos Shabbos, in learning halacha. And those that have learned halacha not necessarily know some of these things that we're going to speak about, and those that do know it, maybe a chazara. But let's go a step back. Let's talk about the introduction, what it means to learn Shabbos, and let's try to understand some of the most famous terms that we discuss, and we throw out these terms. Oh, it's a psik reisha. Oh, it's a dover she'ein mischaven. Like, what does that mean? What's the halacha? Where does it come from? I think we should understand that, because if we understand the basis of all of these things, the foundations of these things, so then when we open up the Shulchan Aruch, and now we're learning Shem Beis, the next month in Mitzvah Shem, whatever we're learning, we'll learn another Malacha B'li Neder, so then we'll understand a deeper connection. Now I'm going to give a lot of Marmakomis. Some of them I'm going to explain, some of them I'm not going to explain. But I think these are Marmakomis that, number one, took me a long time to put together. Could be now, I don't know, maybe now there's a Kitzur Sefer with everything together, I don't know. I mentioned to someone before, so it was a Magid Shin and me who asked me for my notes on Daled Minim. He was giving share on Daled Minim. I worked a long time on Daled Minim. I did Shimish Reb Chaim Friedlander's Atzal on Daled Minim. I worked a long time on Daled Minim. On Shimish and on Halachas, I wrote down notes to give share. Unbelievable. Chazdei Hashem. And I gave them to him to give share. And he came back to me and he says to me, yeah, basically everything's in a dirshu. I said, well, when I wrote these notes, there was no dirshu. I didn't have a dirshu just to copy everything out. The way I did it was, I used to sit in Ganagula Beis Medrash for many hours with the entire Shevet Shas and Shuvah Shevet Halevi, and I'd go through the Mafteach to each Sefer to see if he discussed anything that I was learning, and so on and so forth with all the Shuvahs for him. That's really the way to do it. So I'm going to give the Olim here a little bit of a shortcut, and we're going to go through what we call the introduction to Lamites Malachos, Malachas Machsheves. I'm going to give Marmakomis, some I'm going to explain, some I'm not. It's probably kedai to write them down if you want, and you can always refer to them at a later stage when we discuss something. Hold on a minute, let's look it up over there. Where's the Marmokim for that? Because it's all over the place. Whether it's Shas and Shulchan Aruch, especially obviously Chelik Gimel, there's a lot to discuss. But let's see how much we can try and accomplish in the time that we have. So before we start, what is a malacha? How do we understand the malacha? Many of us understand, some of us have a little bit of a superficial understanding of what means a malacha. Let's try to really understand what is a malacha. We know that a person, Be'etzem, could work hard an entire Shabbos, schlepping couches, schlepping cupboards. By the end of Shabbos, he's schwitzed, he's exhausted, he's finished, he can't move anymore. Was he Mechal Shabbos? Absolutely not. Yeah, depending, obviously, he didn't do anything wrong, muktzah or whatever, maybe, but he wasn't Mechal Shabbos. Maybe it wasn't what we call in the spirit of Shabbos, wasn't Oinik Shabbos, Kovet Shabbos. It's a different sugya that we haven't got into, but maybe not, but it wasn't an Issa. Whereas a person can take a tissue from inside the house, walk outside into the street, and he's chai skila. It's pashut chai skila for that. Okay, asra, whatever. But how does it make sense? What's pshat? So, al pi Kabbalah, there's a lot to understand how the Rabbeinu Shalom created the world in 39 different ways, and Memela on Shabbos we ki'ilu try to do the same thing. We stop creating like the Rabbeinu Shalom stopped creating. It's not just the Shabbos, the resting, but there's a stopping of creation. And the 39 ways, Al Pi Kabbalah, that the Rabban Shem created the world, are the 39 ways of the malachas that we have. But Al Pi Nigla, just on a simple surface level, the Yesod, the Rishonim, many of the Rishonim, the Bala Ma'or talks about it, Barichas in the Malacha of Hitzah, that the Malacha is creating something. I'm changing something. It's a good kasha why Hitzah, Tosfos calls it Malacha Grua. I didn't change anything, I just changed the location. Pseida, we could discuss that, but not for now. But if you look at every one of the Lamates Malachas, some are easier to find, some are less easy to find, you'll notice that every Malacha is creating something. When I have a mitzias of a mixture in front of me of peas and carrots, and I can't stand carrots, and I take out the carrots, and now I can eat the bowl of peas, I have fixed up, I've created a bowl of peas that I can now eat. That's a creation. When I have a mitzias of a beggar that I cannot wear because it doesn't look good and it's dirty, and I shake it, squeeze it from the liquid, whatever it is we'll discuss, and now I make it wearable, I have fixed it up, I've changed something. It's that mitzias that we are meant to stop on Shabbos Kodesh. All 39 malachos are 39 ways of creating something. And Avodah the Rabban Shem can create Yesh Ma'ayin, something from nothing. We as human beings cannot do that. We can only change that which is already here. We are still asked to resemble, as we're learning in the morning, Toimid Devorah. We're trying to be as much as we can Toimid to the Rabbeinu Shalom. And we also stop on Shabbos Kodesh from types of creating, and there are 39 types. Avodah is learned from the Mishkan. Whatever was done in the Mishkan, the Gemara tells us, right, is also on Shabbos Kodesh, because Avodah Binyan Mishkan is not Doiche Shabbos. Hitzah is a good kasha. If we ever get to learn Hitzah, maybe we'll discuss what exactly is the shinoi that you're doing in the tissue from inside the house to the street. Okay, Beseda. Good kasha, but not for now. The emes is we could spend a whole Eluzman on learning the sugya of Melechas Machshavos. We can literally do that. Maybe it was a good idea. But for now, at least we'll know some of that. By the way, there's a Moediger, Shamshir Rafal Hirsch. This is so good, so gewaldig. He brings, when the Torah says, Lo sasa kol melacha. Lo sasa kol melacha. Right? A person can't do melacha. Why does the Torah use a lashon of melacha, not avoida? What's the chilek between melacha and avoida? That's his kasha. So he brings in Bereshis base, look it up. So he says that the shoirish, the root of the word avoida is an eved. An eved is a slave. A slave is not necessarily doing something constructive. He's performing the work of his master. He's doing whatever the boss tells him to do, whether or not the boss needs it, doesn't need it, it's going to have any toyeles or not toyeles. He's just doing it. Just work for me. Just do. That's an eved. That's a slave. Melacha comes from the notion of malach. A malach, we know, has a mission. Every malach has a mission in the world, what he has to accomplish. That's what melacha means. Melacha means a mission that a person is accomplishing. That's why the Torah used loisase kol melacha, not avoida, because melacha is lashon malach. It has a mission, there's a purpose, there's a constructive reason why you're doing this. Stam doing things you're not chayav for. But doing things with a purpose, with an end result, that's what you're chayav for. Memela, that's why the Torah uses a loshon of melacha, because it comes from a loshon of malach. Now, Melechas Machshavos, which is really what we're dealing with today, is a big sugya, big sugya. We're going to touch literally the surface. We're not going to go anywhere deep. We're just going to touch the surface to understand and get some more makoyim here. The Gemara in Chagiga, Tav Yudam al Beis, brings us the makar from a pasuk of Ada, where the pasuk is very clearly in Shemois Lamed Hey Lamed Gimel, Dafka telling us that every malacha on Shabbos has to be a melechas machshavos, lashon machshava. There needs to be a thought going on over here. When a person does a malacha, he can't just do an act without thinking. That's not a malacha. Could be d'Rabbanan, it will be asa. But also doraisa shaboy, he'll not be over an issa doraisa, because it's not considered to be a melechas machshavos osru Torah. And that's over there in the Gemara in Chagi Daf Yud. The Gemara tells us melechas machshavos was only given in that way. That's what Rashi says over there. Shemachshava cheshuva b'daita v'nischaven ozeh. That's your kavanah. And it has to be that way. Because if you do a malacha without thinking, it might not be a malacha doraisa. Well, it could be something else, maybe it'll be also doraisa for a different reason. Maybe it'll be a d'Rabbanan, maybe it'll be a heavy d'Rabbanan. People are busy with this idea of a heavy d'Rabbanan. Maybe we'll talk about it at a different time. But al kaponim, you need the melachas machsheves. There has to be a machshava. I'll give you an example. I don't know if the Olam did, but David says I forgot to put it on the Maramakomis. I think the very first Mishnah 9 Gimel, that goes through the 39 malachas. That really should have been, I think I told some of the Olam, that should really be the starting place. Let's learn the Lamates malachas. Not that I'm choshesh chasron, no one knows, everyone knows the Lamates malachas. But go through it again, see what the malacha is, maybe look at Malabas, what Rashi says over there, whatever. If you look at the Lashon of the Mishnah, it's very revealing. The Lashon of the Mishnah about the malachas is talking alidei apoil, hazoyreya, hachoyrish. If you look at the Rambam, when the Rambam brings the Lamates malachas, the Rambam has a slightly different nusach. Well, forget about the order, that's not for now. But the nusach that the Rambam uses is slightly different. It's alidei hapu'ula. That's what the Rambam seems to be going. Hacharisha, hazariya. What's the chiluk? Well, there must be a reason, right? The Rambam not stam gonna, Mishana is Lashon, not gonna deviate from the Lashon of Chazal, the Lashon of the Mishnah, for no reason whatsoever. What's the pshat? Why the Rambam changed? So the Magen Avos, Moedige Sefer Magen Avos explains in this Akdama, what's the pshat between the chiluk between the Mishnah and the Rambam. And he says, the Mishnah, and this is something that we're going to discuss in a few minutes, but just to give you an idea, the Mishnah goes with Shitas Reb Shimon. Reb Shimon holds a malacha she'enet tzricha legufa, when you do a malacha but not for the same reason that was done in the Mishkan, is pata. Malacha she'enet tzricha is pata. Mimela, the Mishnah held that when you do a malacha by itself, that's the malacha, the pu'ula itself is not what's going to make you chayiv. That's not what's machayiv you. I need the kavana of the person that's doing it for a specific tachlis, for a constructive reason, for a purpose. Then, whether it sprouts from the pu'ula, I need the pu'ula together. But with the pu'ula without the kavana, it doesn't work. Mimela, that's why the Mishnah used that lashon. The Rambam, however, kiyadua, the shitosai, for many reasons, holds the shitas Rabbi Yehuda. That a malacha she'enet tzricha legufa, when I do a malacha that's not for the purpose that was done in the Mishkan, and maybe we'll give examples in a minute or two, is chayiv. Mimela, according to that, if you're chayiv, even if you don't have kavanah, the Rambam holds that the pu'ula itself is going to make you chayiv. Mimela, I don't have to come on to anything. That's why the Rambam used the loshon hacharisha. Make a difference to kavanah. It's the pu'ula, it's the action that you're doing of digging something. Might have kamina for you. You need the hole, you need the dirt. So it doesn't make it kamina. It's the pu'ula that does it. Avada, if the Rambam avada, you need some kavanah. Melech machshavas hasu Torah. But the Rambam is saying the malacha itself is going to be goyrim the chiyuv without anything else. I'll go upon him. Again, a lot to discuss. This idea that the Avos and the Toldos that we have comes from the Mishnah 9 Gimel, look it up if you haven't until now. And we know that there's a machlokes tamazoi, machlokes rishonim. If you look in the Glital, also in Akdama, he brings this machlokes, which is a famous idea, which is what is every malacha based on. Shitas Rashi, you can look this up in Mentesel Mebeis and 9 Gimel also, is the malachos are learned from the binyan hamishkan. Whatever was done to build the Mishkan, that's a malacha on Shabbos Kodesh. That's Shitas Rashi. Whereas Shitas Rav Hai Goin held no. The malachos are learned from the avodas hamishkan. Not how they built and when they built the Mishkan, but when the Mishkan was in service, when it was working, when they were busy in there, what was the avodas hamishkan? That whatever is done over there, that was considered to be an issa over there. Okay, again, this common nafkamina is not for now, but I just wanted to bring that aside. And Avana told her we have to know. I was asked to speak in a specific place that I thought that they probably know things, and I just threw out the question because, why not? Right? It was older guys, but what's enough community to the Avana told her? And straight away, a guy said, "What do you mean? Avos are d'oraisa, and I told her it's a drabanan." Okay, so just in case anyone ever had such a havamina, no. And Av and Atolda are both a d'oraisa. They're both d'oraisa. Nafkamina legabe korban. But I'll upon him, Av and Atolda are both an issa d'oraisa. The nafkamina is, and Av was exactly the way it was done in the Mishkan, and Atolda is doima. It's similar to what they did in the Mishkan. So you may ask, how do you know what's an Av and what's a Atolda? So you look at the Rambam. Shabbos Perek Zayin and Beis. What the Rambam says, he calls them inyan echad. If they have exactly the same thing, then it's all considered to be an av. For example, hachoyvish v'hachoyfe. It's the same pula. I'm using a different kli, but it's the same pula. I'm not going to go through all the different examples at this time about boitze and koitze. Fine. But if it's only ktsas doime, it's similar to what was done in the Mishkan. I mean, it's the same idea, but it's not exactly as it was done in the Mishkan. So avad is a doraisa, but it's a tolda. Okay? Again? Except it's so. Very good. Okay, it's got its own set of rules. Very good. Excellent. Shkoyach. Good.
Goy.
Go. Anachmo? Alidei goy?
Goy.
I gave examples.
No, what's not going?
Okay, I'm going to give. Let me see if I can get to examples. I'm going to see if I can get to examples of that. Okay. Agav, the nafkamina between an av and a tolda is not just a gabi korban, which Be'ez Hashem later today is going to be Nageya, but in case Chas v'Shalom it's not, what's enough community in Av and a Tolda? Stam, okay, Hasra, Tosfos, okay, you have to warn someone, Dafka Av, not Tolda, okay. In Shabbos and Shuvas Birchas Avram, that's Rabbi Avram ben Arambam. That's true. Yeah, the two nafkamis I wanted to say are more lemaisa for us is in the Avram ben Rambam brings down in Shuvas. He says that only in the Ikkim Malacha we say a klal called Ein Disha Ele Begedula Karka. Right? I have to just that, Zach, right? If we learn Dosh, Ein Disha Ele Begedula Karka. That means Dosh is only by something that's grown in the ground. Zug Avram ben Rambam. That's only on an av. On a Tolda, we would say Shaloi b'makom gedula karka. Okay, again, halacha l'maisa we can handle, but I'm just giving you an example how it could be. The other one, by the way, the Be'alacha discusses this in the middle of Siman Shin Mem. The Be'alacha says, if I'm not mistaken, Sifir Dalet, where he talks about the sheh. The sheh could be enough kamina if it's an avra tolda. I know the share of the malacha that you have to do in order to be chayev will be enough kamina maybe if it's an avra tolda. Again, Ayin Shom the Be'alacha over there in Siman Shin Mem. If I'm not mistaken, it's Sifir Dalet. Now. Dover she'ena mischaven. Let's go through some of the big common terms. These are very, very important. Dover she'ena mischaven. What does it mean? I didn't have kavona. Okay, we can talk about it. We can handle it by malabin, where I'm shaking out my beged, or I'm, whatever it is, getting off the dust in my hat and jacket, whatever. Not the kavona of malabin. I'm not makbid. We can discuss it with any malacha. I open up the fridge and the light goes on. Yeah, but it's not my kavona to open up the fridge and have the light go on. Dover she'ena mischaven. The general halacha is the Gemara in Shabbos Kuf Beis talks about this barichas, which is when you do something and something else happens unexpected, right? This is Machlokes Reb Shimon and Reb Yehuda. Reb Chaim al Rambam in Perek Yud says it's not the pshat that I didn't know I was doing a malacha, but rather this maisa that I did is not attributed to me. Why? Because my das was on a pu'ulas heta. My das was on a permitted action. Mimela, the a'isa was just agav. It was agav. That's dover she'ena mischaven. That's very important. That's a very important Reb Chaim al Rambam, that it's not the pshat that I didn't know about. I didn't know. That's something else. I knew. But my ikka kavana was on the Maisa Heta, and agav a Maisa Isa happened, so that's a very different thing. For example, I'll give you a few. Shin Lamed Vav Siv Gimel. Walking on the grass, and the grass gets pulled up. Okay, so we can handle running. But walking on the grass, right? You're allowed. It's a Maisa Heta. Yeah, but agav, grass gets pulled up, you're even koitza. Say that, but it's Dover She'ena Mischaven. Okay, we'll get to Psik Reisha in a minute. But before we get to Psik Reisha, it's Dover She'ena Mischaven. I'm doing something, my das is not on there, my das is not a Maisa Heta. Siman Shin Gimel at the end, brushing your hair with a comb, right? Common misconception. Hair's getting pulled out. Again, we'll get to the Sugya Psik Reisha in a minute. Again, my kavana is not for that. My kavana is a Maisa Heta. Agav Eisor is happening. That's called Dover She'ena Mischaven. Shalom Azayim, famously in the beginning, schlepping a bench or a bed or a chair, whatever, a heavy one over the earth. You're making a psachwitz, you're making a hole, you're making something there, choyrish, whatever. These are the shailas. Malchakes Rishonim, are we dealing with the daraisa durabanan? Dover She'ena Mischaven. Mut is a daraisa or it is a durabanan. Many Rishonim held as an issa daraisa. Shidduch Rabbi Yehuda, it's the Ramban, the Rosh, the Rashba, the Ran, the Meiri. Rashi and Kuf Chav Aleph in Shabbos on the base, Tosfos Mem Aleph on the base, the Rivash and others held it was an issa durabanan. Lemaisa we pass it like Reb Shimon. Dover She'ena Mischaven is okay. Now, the problem is often it's a Psik Reisha. So let's move on to the next stage. What's a Psik Reisha? So the exception of the rule of the heta of Dover She'ena Mischaven is mutter, that's only if it's not a Psik Reisha. It's a Gemara, it's often a Gemara. The Gemara says, have a Psik Reisha. Question is, what does that mean? So a Psik Reisha means it is automatically going to happen. What's the lomdus of a Psik Reisha being osa? Maisa is a Dover She'ena Mischaven. My das, as we said a moment ago, is on a Maisa Heta. I'm walking on the grass. That's what I'm doing. Agav grass getting pulled up. Seder. Why is it attributed to me? What's the chiluk? Well, because the psik reisha makes it worse. So Rabbi Chanan has a famous chakira, which halavai we could go through, but just to give you a little bit of a taste, in Kovid Shurim on Masechtus Ksubas, Siman Yutes, where he brings a chakira about this, and his chakira is: do we say that since it's a psik reisha, meaning I knew it was going to happen, mimela, that's my kavana, because I knew it was going to happen, so it's your kavana because you know it's going to happen? Or do we say, even without your kavana, I don't need your kavana, but since it's happening at the same time, it's one maisa, it's all one thing, it's all one piece, it goes together. It's tied in. That's the shaila that he brings backwards and forwards with the railas. I'm not going to go into. We know the Gemara tells us how we paskin and that's just a psik reisha. Psik reisha makes it also. By the way, a psik reisha is also even if it's a durabanan, even if the melacha is a durabanan. So, for example, let's say opening up the light switch of a fridge. Let's say it's an LED light that has no spark, no warmth, no heat, nothing whatsoever to make it a deraisa, right, which normal old-fashioned lights would be. So it's a durabanan. But psik reisha by durabanan, by the way, is also. You can look this one up in Aruch HaShulchan. Shin Lamed Zayin, right in the beginning. Mishnah Berurah Shin Yadalis Sikot Test also brings it as well. Brushing your hair, psik reisha. Very good. Also, even if it's a drabanan, because it's goyzer, then there's no miyapis as a seir, the be'alochin shin men that talks all about that. Meila pseida. What about a korov lipsik reisha? It's not vade going to happen. It's not 100%. It's like 95%. It's a korov lipsik reisha. It's probably going to happen. Not 50-50, much more than that. What do we say in that case? Major machlokas rishonim about something that's called a korov lipsik reisha. Does it have a din of a psik reisha or not? Toisvus in Psachim Kuf Aleph is mekel. The Ritva in Ksubas Daf Chavav also, on base also is mekel. The Ureim and Siman Reisha in Dalet is machme. And as I pass in the Rivosh, the Meiri, Chumas Hadeshen, Tosus Shabbos, and Pashtus, the Mishnah Berurah and Reisha in Zayin, the beginning of the Be'alacha also in Siman Shin Mem Aleph and the Shatzin Shechov Sikot Mem Tes. Al Koponim. A psik reisha, is it a doraisa or is it a drabanan? So the Egletal Tainers, again he brings many rayas for this. Look up in Chovish Oischof, the Egletal Tainers is an Issa doraisa. Most would hold, and Ali b'de Hilchos Lachol Maisa, and the Ravazna and Shevet Halevi and Chelik Gimel Siman Mem Aleph. With Yashav in his Ha'oraz in Masechta Shabbos and Rishloim Zalman in Mincha Shloim and Chelik Aleph Siman Yud brings a Meiri and Ureim and other Rishonim that hold a psik reisha be'etzem is an Issa D'Rabbanan. Now, when we say a psik reisha, what do we mean? This is also a big chakira in the Lomdas of psik reisha. Is a psik reisha? By the way, these klolim, Rabbi said, these klolim are going to help you Be'ez Hashem for all malachas that you learn. When you say the word psik reisha, does it mean one single action, or do we look at the whole thing? I'll give an example. When I run on the grass, take brushing your hair. When I brush my hair, is each brush going to vadai cause a hair to come out? Like every single time I go one time, vadai going to pull a hair out? Probably not, right? But if I brush my hair 15 times, the action of brushing my hair is vadai going to cause a hair to come out. So which is the psik reisha? If it's on the maisa alone, so each maisa is not a psik reisha, so we can be mutter. It's not a psik reisha. Boom, I'm mutter to brush my hair. If we say that we look at the whole thing, so maybe not. Okay? This is the Rivosh's Chakira. The Rivosh Lamaisa is Machme. And it looks like a lot of poskim are paskening like the Rivosh, that we look at the whole Maisa as opposed to each individual. When you walk on a grass, right? It could be when you walk for 20 minutes on grass, in that 20-minute period of time, a blade of grass is going to come out. You probably would say it's a psik reisha to happen in 20 minutes. But each time you take a step, that's not a psik reisha. The Rivosh is generally machmed. Rav Shlomo Zalman is a tshuvat in certain cases to be mekel. Whatever, you look it up, Shmir Shabbos, Perek Chavav, Ora 50, I think it is over there, where he wants to, certain cases to be mekel. Because you look at the whole maisa. The maisa brushing your hair is what you're doing. In this maisa brushing your hair, vade a hair is going to come out. It's a psik reisha. Because I haven't finished brushing my hair when I do once. When you do one thing, when I'm walking on the grass, let's say, I take one step. I didn't finish yet. I'm in the middle. I'm in the middle of the sugya. So again, then you have to clear the 10 minutes then. But each one according to its thing. No, the action that you're doing. You look at the action that you do. It's a good kasha. You clear in the Rivosh. We're not learning the sugya now, but it's a good kasha. But we're looking at the action that you're doing. This whole action, whatever you're doing, whatever it is that going to cause vadei malacha to happen? Yard 9. That's the kasha. Fine. Psik reisha deloi nichalei. Also, a very commonly thrown out term. Now, by the way, I'm not going into klolim of Ashkenazim and Sfardim, Sikvation or Nichele, and Tudor Abonons, Ravadia's famous Mekel, the Chazon Ish held there's no Makon Shas for that. Backwards and forwards, there's a lot of discussion about these things. I'm not going down to klole hapsak. That's maybe also another good shit that we can give one day. Now we're talking about just the terms of Chazal that we have to know for some of the shalis that we're learning. Sikvation or Nichele means I don't want it to happen. Which in most cases the situation is going to happen, right? The most famous one, of course, is Chazal. They tell us what you need a ball to play something, you want to play ball on the floor. You take a chicken's head, then you cut it off. That's the famous one. Say that everybody asks the kasha, how can you call it psikvesha? That's what you're doing. A lot of lumdas on that. But the basic idea is, psikvesha de l'nichele means I have no interest in it whatsoever. Now, by the way, psikvesha de l'nichele does not mean because of Shabbos Kodesh. Oh, it's Shabbos, and because it's Shabbos, I don't want it to happen. That's not a psikvation on nichele, because it's nichele. Just because of Shabbos, you don't want it to happen, right? That's not psikvation on nichele. That way, it's clear in all of the poskim in this case. Renitzah Karedes brings it, Chotshani Da'os Nidbru brings it, Shlomo Zalman brings it. Psikvation on nichele because of Shabbos is called nichele. Shabbos doesn't make it lo nichele. Now, those when the light goes on in the fridge, right? Don't say, yeah, I don't, it's lo nichele because of Shabbos. I don't want it to go on. You normally do want the light to go on so you can see everything, right? By the way, I keep using the same example. I don't know if it's necessarily a good example. Shlomo Zalman famously held when it comes to a fridge opening up the light, which can happen sometimes. You go on vacation, whatever it is, or even at home sometimes you forget to do the light thing and open up. So it's a psikvesha, handling, all of a sudden it's the danger sometimes of learning too much lomdas and halacha. You start handling different shilas, with the whole thing. How I come out with the het, it's probably okay. I heard it. There's the ritva, I think maybe okay. I think he said it's okay. Whatever. You got to be careful with these things. But Shlomo Zalman held that there's no light switch of a fridge, right? As far as I know, no fridge comes with a light switch. If you want to switch the light on and off, every time you open it, you have a light switch? No. The way to switch on the fridge light is by opening the door. That's the switch. It's not psikvesha. Nobody said when you put on the light on Shabbos, you flick the switch. Oh, psikvesha. No, that's the malacha. That's how you do it. So it could be, I keep on using that example. We can handle whether that example is a good example or not. But our component is a machlokes rishonim whether or not a psikvesha de l'nichele is good or not. The Shulchan Aruch, towards the end of Siman Shin Chof and Sif Yud Ches, brings down both shitas, but does say Rov Rishonim Paskim like the first day. The Be'alacha brings Kama other tzirufim to be makel by psikvesha de lo nichele. The problem is if you look at Shimon Shin Lamed Zayin in the Shadsin Zigaten base by schlepping a bench, there's a shayla over there. There's a bunch of places in the Mishnah Berurah, by the way, where if you want to just look up all of these things, some places the Be'alacha is Mekel, some places he's Machme. For example, look in Chavish in the Be'alacha in Shin Aleph Siv Yud Zayin, or you look at Koitze, for example, in the Mishnah Berurah Zigaten Chofein Shin Lamed Vav. If you look at Goizes and Shin Tazayin Zigaten Mem Beis. If you look at Seder Mishnah Berurah Shin Tazayin Zigaten Taz Vov, it goes backwards and forwards. The Dasa Mishnah Berurah about a psikvesha de lo nichele. Is it mutter? Is it asa? By the way, there's more marmikomis. If those of you that want boina shin yudalad, you can look at Mishnah Berurah Shikotan Aleph, for example, Kosev shin mem, Mishnah Berurah Shikotan Yud Zayin. It goes backwards. It keeps on going with that sugya. So it's hard to give it a clear psak in that case. But let's move on to Dava she'ena melacha she'ena tzrika legufa. Malacha she'enet tzricha legufa means you're doing the malacha, but not for the same kavana as was done in the Mishkan. Okay, that's the shaila. There's a shaila in the Mishnah. The Mishnah goes through it in Sadi Gimel Omid Beis in Shabbos. Machlokes, whatever it is. The Rambam and the Rif tell us halacha kastam Mishnah, which means halacha she'enet tzricha legufa is going to be chayiv. Rov Rishonim, Tosfos, the Rashba, the Ramban, the Ra'ah, and Lemaisa, the Mishnah Berurah Paskins, and Shin Lamed Zayin Tzikotin Lamed Daled, and Shin Lamed Daled Tzikotin Pehei, that if you're missing the Ikka Melacha, then you are Potter. Potter does not mean Mutter. Potter Valasa. Why are you Potter? Rashi says, and again, we're talking about doing a malacha she'ena tzricha legufa. I'm doing the malacha, but not for the same kavana as it was done in the Mishkan. Rashi in Shabbos Sadi Gimel Amud Beis says it's not melechas machshavas. Going back to what we said in the beginning, in order to machayiv a person, it has to be melechas machshavas. Without doing it for the same reason as it was done in the Mishkan, means it was not melechas machshavas. So, for example, a person closes the door, and there happens to be an animal in his home. He's over in Seder. It's a malacha she'ena tzricha legufa. He did the malacha. He did the malacha of tzeda. He trapped something in his home. But that wasn't his kavanah. He closed the door because that's what he normally does. Or he closed it because he doesn't want anyone else to go into his house, whatever it may be. That's a malacha she'ein tzricha legufa in that case, which the pashtus will be potter in that case. By the way, most keyboys, extinguishing is a malacha she'ein tzricha legufa. Because you don't need the pcham, you don't need the cold, you don't need it. You're switching off because electricity costs money, or you're too cold, or you're too hot, or whatever it may be that you're doing it for. That's a malacha she'ein tzricha legufa. Big nafkaminas, legabe, we learned it last month, legabe chayla, right, in Mafua. You can be more makeup, putting off a light, on a light, whatever it may be. Amir la'akum, by the way, there are major nafkaminas in everything that we're saying. If we ever get the sugya of Amir la'akum, that's gavaldik. If we learn some Shimem Gimel, that will be gavaldik also. We can learn the halachas of telling children. Do you have to stop children? You don't have to stop children. A child's doing a malacha. Do you have to stop them? Yeah, but it's only a malacha she'ein kufa. It's only drabanan. You have to make whatever. So there's a lot of places that we're going over here in that case. Agav, the question.
Closing the door is an animal. Why is that malacha she'ein kufa not in the skam?
Oh, very good, excellent. Oh, gavaldik kasha. The Olam had the kasha. Why is it not a psik ratio? That's a psik ratio, the same thing. A psik ratio means I'm doing it, so that's what I'm doing. I'm closing the door. Why is it malacha she'ein kufa? It's a psik ratio. It's very good. Kesef Mishnah. The Kesef Mishnah discusses this. Kesef Mishnah asks this kasha, and the Kesef Mishnah brings down that a psik ratio means I have 0.0 kavanah for the malacha whatsoever. It just happens to be happening at the same time. Meaning, when I'm walking on the grass, there's no pshat that anyone has a havamina right on the ripping up of the grass. No shaykhs to guys is what to koitza. No shaykhs to that whatsoever. Right? That's called a psik ratio. When you close the door and you know there's an animal, right? Obviously, so then you know that you are guarding the animal inside that's now trapped. That's not your kavanah, it's not what I want to do, but I know that's happening. Kind of your machshava is on there. That's the Kesef Mishnah. If you look at the Aruch HaShulchan, by the way, in Simon Reishman, basic Lamed Zayin, Lamed Gimel, he also brings down a similar idea also to this kasha, the nafkaminim between malacha she'ein kufa and the psik ratio. So we can go on and on and on about this, but I just want to get in the last few minutes just to get through a couple more and we finish the sugya. Misasik. What's a misasik? Misasik means I'm preoccupied. That's what it means. And I'm potter. Once again, why? Is nemelechas machshavas. No kavanah on this. That's called a misasik. The Gemara in Sanhedrin, some base on a base. Gemara in Baba Kama, chavav on a base. Rashi says, again, it's a pasuk of Vayikra, ashachot boy prat lemischaven. There's no kavanah over here, right? In other words, a person. Classic example of misasik the Gemara brings is that when you thought the flower was detached from the ground and you picked it up and it was attached. Misasik. I never had other meaning. It's not pshat. I didn't make a mistake. It's mutter. It's didan. What's the shayla? That's a misasik, right? You walk out in your house. You're carrying something in your pocket. It's a misasik. And there's no shaykhas.
If you know something, can you keep quiet if someone else is misasik?
That's a good question. Pashtus is better for him to be a misasik than anything else.
Tell him about the fridge, then you can.
But it could be. The fridge might be different because I said it's not mamash like a psik ratio situation. If I remember correctly, yeah, a bunch of when I used to live in I don't want to say names because I don't know who's listening, whatever. But I used to live in a place a bunch of years ago where there was engines of the garage had one of these the barriers, they go up and down during the week. The people that are driving with the cars, you press it go up and down. And on Shabbos, everybody walked past it to go to shul. And the problem is, I chapped not long after I moved in that every time they're walking past, they're setting off the little, there's something inside there that clicks every time someone walks past. Because in case it's going down and someone walks past, it chaps as a person there and it will go back up. So it won't bash the person. But even when it's down, it still chaps something, clicks. There's something with electricity, you can tie electricity, drabanon, okay, we're not going to go down to electricity, but so what I wanted to do is I wanted to put a piece of paper on it. Like you stick a piece of paper Erev Shabbos on it, that you block it. And this way when you blocked it, so then it doesn't, there's no sensor anymore. So someone made the horror to me, said to me, it's better not to do that, because when you put that there, if one time you forget, they're no longer a misasik, because now they know. But if they don't know, they're misasik. Misasik is the lowest madrega of any issa whatsoever. Yeah. Well, by the lights and everything else. Similar. Yeah. Very good. Okay. Very good. Satellites and lights going on automatically and all these things. Halavai we get to discuss all of these things. But anyway, that's what a misasik means in that case. And Lemaisa, Kiveiga has a famous yisoid on misasik that you're potter mechatos, but Lemaisa is still asa. Rabbaran has a whole yisoid in Mishnahs to Rabbaran in Simon Daled, and he holds this in Isidor Rabbanon. Shalis, you have to stop someone. Who asked that question? You have to stop someone. You asked that one, right? So Moshe's a tshuva, by the way. In Even Ezer, Simon Dalit, he passes Avadi, you have to stop someone. Brings only Gyontav as a Raya, Avadi, you have to stop someone for being a Masasik. Anyway, let's do the last couple of minutes. Be Mekalkel. Huh?
So why not open the paper?
Nachanami. It was before I knew that Ramosha. Kilkel. What about if you're Mekalkel something, right? We're going to get soon to the sugya of in Siftes of Shviyosei Kibusay, the Gemara in Zvachim coming up to soon in Daf Yomi, not so long, about the sugya of Shviyosei Kibusay. Very, very, very important sugya. It's a chelik of Kibbus and Melaban. Some people learn it in Sif Aleph. We're going to learn it in Siftes because it goes together with Siftes. But Shviyosei Kibusay means to make something wet. Now the question is, what does that mean? Well, we'll discuss the shaila. But let's say wine falls on the floor and you take a shmata and you put it on there, right? Are you allowed to do that or not? So the Ma'aser Pashas is it makes it dirty. It doesn't make it better. That's the fakir. That's the fakir of Libun. It's making it dirty, not clean. So it should be mutter. Again, halacha Ma'aser, we'll talk about it when we get to it in Siftes. But the shaila is any malacha that does a kilkul, that ruins something. The din is that in Ma'aser it's okay. Why? We're not chayiv, not mutter. We're not chayiv. Why not? Because every malacha in the Mishkan was done with the toyeles, was done with the constructive purpose. If you're doing malacha that's not with the constructive purpose, then mainly you're not chayiv. The Chashukon talks this out very, very clearly. Reish Mem Beis Siv Cotton Chav Gimel, and it's not a malachas maksheves as well. Makar is a Mishnah. Shabbos Kofheim at base. Kol Abakalkalim is going to be potter. Why? Rashi Shabbos Laman Aleph on the base. She'enim malacha machshevet. That's what it is. You break something, you tear clothing, you break a plate, whatever. All of these things are considered to be a kilkul. The only thing is, we have kama malachas that the metzias of the malacha is a kilkul. For example, the malacha of saisa. I mean, enocha kilkul gadol mezeh. Right? That's one example. Or mechaber, koreya, moichek. All of those by metzias intrinsically are ruining things. That's why the Be'alacha famously says in Shem Shem Mem, the Kabbalah B'Shonim, that as long as it's done al das. In other words, if you're doing soisa al manas, live nice. Or if you're doing koreh al manas, litva. Right? If you're doing it with a constructive purpose, so then it's okay. Okay, so that's the general rule in that case. To give you an example when kulkul could be completely mutter, is if, for example, you buy a magazine that has a plastic covering on it, or you buy a plastic cups, the whole thing of plastic cups, and it comes to plastic, you want to rip it open. So that's a kilkul. But it's a kilkul that's mutter. So Oichel, the round says that's mutter. Again, not halacha l'maisa for this moment. It is halacha l'maisa. You could do it, but I'm just telling you that's where kilkul comes in to be 100% mutter in that case over there. Shinoi is another one as well. We only got a couple of minutes left. When it comes to a shinoi, when a person does an action in a different way, so a person is only going to be chayav from halacha when he does something in the normal way that it's normally done. When a person does it, it's a shinoi way. It's not the normal way. Then that's considered to be potter. Again, potter doesn't mean mutter lechatchila. Sometimes, yes, a shina will make something mutter lechatchila. Right? If we ever are adventurous enough in this kollel to learn melachas of losh, if we are adventurous enough to learn shin chaf aleph and learn losh, then we will see that making a shinoi with losh is it's a gewaldige malacha, by the way. We can do a lot of practical things. We'll bring some wheat to pick in. We'll show the olim examples and stuff, whatever. It'll be great. But in base, it's a very hard malacha. Very hard malacha. It's a very hard malacha to learn. Falks, as that Sal told me, it's one of the hardest ones to learn in kollel. Zerapishtan is a shaila. Not for now. Not for now. Al Kaponim. So why am I telling you this? Oh, because Losh has a side in it. When you do a shino, it makes it completely mutter. Generally, a shino will take it from a deraisa to a drabanon. Sometimes a shino will make it completely mutter in that case. Right? For example, we discussed this last month a little bit. When a person needs to write on Shabbos to go to a hospital, whatever it may be, write with your left hand. And the reason for that is because the toitzah, the end result, is different when you do it with your left hand. The shayla is what happens if the toitzah is exactly the same. Like manaf kimini, if you turn on the light with your right hand or your left hand, manaf kimini, it's called a shinoi. Good shayla. In Hilchos shinoi, that's the kasha. A lot hold that it's not good. The Chayei talks about this by Riches. The Tiferes Yisrael also, the Marisham is a Tshuva and Chelik Beis also about this. Chalkas Yaakov as well, and Chelik Adalef, about whether or not this is considered to be a shinoi if the toitzah is exactly the same, or is only said on malacha like shchita or ksiva, where the result is going to be different. Again, not for now. And very quickly, chatzi malacha, right? Chassid she'asur ben Torah, we know know, in order for a person to be chayav, there has to be a minimum share. Obviously, each malacha has its share. In order for a person to be chayav, he has to have the whole share. However, many times, a person will be also anyway, because of chatzi sheh osam in Torah. We also have a klal called the Grama, Shabbos, Gemara Shabbos, Kuf Chof Omid Beis, Le'sasa Kol Malacha, Asiyah Hud Asa, Grama is mutter. However, Lemaisa, the Rosh has a whole sugya on this in at the end of Siman Yud Gimel, that he wants to say if it happens at the same time, then maybe the grama doesn't work, which is why the problem of using electric timers and changing timers, if you're allowed to pop up the tags on the Shabbos clock. Yeah, no, again, not for now. Great sugya, shaila of a grama or not a grama, and of course miskayim as well. In order for a person to chayev, the malacha that he does has to be miskayim. Mishnah and Shabbos Kubeis Omid Beis as well. Then he's going to be chayev. Again, each malacha has its mahalach of how long it has to be lasting for it to be. There's be mekayim, there's ein mekayim, klal, 3 madregas, which of course we're not going to this moment of time. I just want to end with one last yesod, just for the olam. So we give a zmiris here downstairs to the boys every Thursday. So in one of the zmiris, Heilig Zmiris Kol Mekadosh, saying Kol Mekadosh, Moshe Azakani brings first letters and of the second words in each of the first 3 lines. Mekadesh, Shomer, and Harbe spell out his name, Moshe. Most of the Zmiris did that, whatever. So it's interesting to note, if you look at the terminology of the Zmiris of Kol Mekadosh, so there's a little bit of a repetition going on. You find Kol Mekadesh Shvi Koroiloi, right? A person is Mekadesh, the 7th day, Mekadesh HaShabbos, Koroiloi, as it's right. Called Shomer Shabbos Kados Mechalaloi, right? And anyone that, so to speak, he's safeguarding the Shabbos and stops it from any desecration, from any chil. Sounds like a repetition. And the next verse over here of the Zmiris reveals to us the reward that a person gets for both of those things. Schoroi harbe ma'oid al pipale, gewaldig. But why do we need the first 2? We're describing the same person, doing the same thing. One, the person is Mekadosh HaShabbos, and the person that safeguards it from chilul. The Marsham gives an explanation to this Zmiris Moedik. And he says, and he quotes the Gemara in Shabbos. The Gemara in Shabbos, Samach Tesam and Beis, tells us what happens if a person is walking in the desert and he loses cheshbon of when Shabbos. People had to do this in the Holocaust. People did this in the camps. Cousin McGregor talks all about this, how he had make cheshbonos of Shabbos. They didn't know when Shabbos was. They lost cheshbonos, Shabbos, Yontav. What do you do? So the Gemara. So the Gemara says you're walking in a desert when Shabbos is. The Gemara says you count 6 days, and the 7th day will now be Shabbos. Okay? Which is quite simply, he's loved after keeping Shabbos, our Shabbos, meaning the Shabbos Kodesh. But he's keeping his Shabbos. He's made his cheshbon, and he's keeping his Shabbos in that case, and he's being Mekadosh his Shabbos in that case. Zug the Marsham, what Kol Mekadosh is teaching us, that every individual, schora harbe ma'oid, the reward is great. Just like a person is shoyim Shabbos kados, when a person keeps the Shabbos properly, it doesn't make a difference if he does it in a way of kedusha or he just stops it from being machalal. There are different madregas. You look at sometimes other people and you're like, wow, I wish I had that person's Shabbos. Wow, that person has such a geshmak of Shabbos, kedusha to Shabbos. Wow, I'm not holding that. I just try to make sure I don't do boira, losh, and muktzah and everything else. That's what Kol Mekadosh is teaching us. Both of them, make it your Shabbos. Wherever you're holding Avada, you work on yourself to become better and better. But the ikar is to know that wherever you're holding your Shabbos, make it your Shabbos. Make Shabbos your day. Try to do whatever you can. Be'ez Hashem and B'siyat Shmai. With all of these halachas, Be'ez Hashem. Next week we'll go through some of the halachas that's negayed to Melaban B'siyat Shmaya. Shkayach.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.